I didn't plan to go VAT reg, didn't know much about it. I always had it in my head that the VAT threshold maybe went from April to April, but where really it goes on a 12-month basis, so it could be January to January, February to February, March to March. And when we sat down and looked at it, kind of realised that over the 12-month periods going forward, I went over the VAT threshold 8 times. The money that I got from that, I was able then to put back into my business and set me up with all the equipment, the vans, the trailers, the scarifiers, more developments being taken on next year. Need bigger equipment. The way I always look at it, you may as well buy it. If you've got the money to pay for it, buy the equipment.
What about you? And welcome to Roots to Revenue, the podcast that helps small businesses grow. Before we get into the podcast, although this podcast is, we're both gardeners, a lot of the tips and stuff that we're going to talk about today are going to be relevant whatever service industry you're in.
Yeah.
If you're starting any small business, I think a lot of the tips and what we're going to talk about today, and especially crashing through the VAT. So whenever you get to a certain size in business, then the VAT is something. But we're going to hit that. Yeah, we'll get into that later. But these tips will apply to anyone. It's not just for gardeners. This video is in association with Jobber. Jobber is software that I've used for the last 10 years to run my own business. It does all my scheduling, my invoicing and my quoting, and best of all, it gets me paid faster and my customers love it. If you want to try it out, it's free for the first 14 days, and if you use my link down in the video description, it'll get you 20% off your first 6 months.
Today we have Peter Roberts in with us. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into the business that you're in?
My background, very similar to Robbie's, was in greenkeeping. Started in greenkeeping, Clannyboy Golf Club. I worked at Clannyboy Golf Club 12 years. Came to Clannyboy as an apprentice. I was 20 when I started Clannyboy. Always worked in golf previous to that. Worked in the golf shops and whatnot. Got a job advertisement at Clannyboy, looked at it, had a young family, just thought it was a better career path. Greenkeeping is a brilliant area to start at. If anybody's interested in sports turf or turf management, it's an excellent area to go into to learn the trade, get your education, going to Greenmount, doing your MVQs, level 2, level 3, and even moving on, possibly doing your foundation degree. Moved on from Clannyboy after about 12 years, went to Bangor Golf Club briefly, and then in the background I always had a small business built up, whether that had been scar fan, grass cutting, then fell into grounds maintenance, site management, into housing developments, new housing developments. Had a builder knock on my door one day and offered me a site that I was living on. Never looked back from it either. So went to Bangor briefly. Friend of ours, Aaron Small, who got me into Clannyboy, he was the assistant manager at Clannyboy. Aaron Small went to Beaver Park. He had a part-time job at Beaver Park. Offered it to me, took it up, and that allowed me then to build the business even more. And then also still making a revenue coming in each month.
A lot of greenkeepers would do work on the side. The greenkeeping is a fantastic career,
but unfortunately the pay is not great.
Yep.
And they are paying the price for that now because greenkeepers are very few, far between.
Yeah, they can't get the staff.
Get the staff. Now, golf clubs, a lot of golf clubs that I know are starting to waken up, particularly Clannyboy and Beaver, and I'm starting to pay the wages that they should be getting paid. I'm being recognised as a trades, but like a joiner, like a plumber.
It's harder for them to get staff and keep staff than...
Yeah, to this day, because boys know they can go out and triple their wage by going out and cutting people's gardens. But as I said, that job I took at Beaver allowed me to build the business even more. All our management agents were seeing the jobs that I was doing to the developments that I had taken on, and then even more developments came to me. And
how did you get your foot in the door in the first development? Were you doing gardens? Were you doing gardens beforehand, or how did you?
Basically, I was doing gardens beforehand. Private customers, whether that been scar fan or just grass cutting, hedge cutting. The grounds maintenance was another level. Grounds maintenance, the way I look at that is that I have cash flow every month.
A lot of guys would struggle to break into. You got into the commercial market.
I fell into it.
Yeah,
I fell into it because the builder knew me. The builder that built the house that I was living in at the time built the house that my mum and dad live in. So he had known me from when I was 6 or 7, and when we moved to Donegal,
that opened the door for you.
A development called Edgewater, and they built this development which was called the Court Mill, which was in Malile. And the builder knew that I was a greenkeeper, and he just knocked on the door one day because they were having problems with the landscaper at the time for it, and people paying the bills. and just asked me would I be interested in doing the site maintenance of it.
That was a really interesting door knock, I'm sure.
It was a door knock because the money that I got from that, I was able then to put back into my business and set me up with all the equipment, the vans, the trailers, the scarifiers, more developments being taken on next year. Need bigger equipment. The way I always look at it, you may as well buy it. If you've got the money to pay for it, buy the equipment.
And just on that note, I talked to some businesses and they use debt to grow. Or would you tend to use debt to grow, or would you try and take the money from within the business and spend it on it?
Making money. The only debt that I would have in my business at the minute is my van, is on finance. Bought a digger back in May and I saved for that digger. Previous year, I just sat down and looked at my rentals to Blue Hire, hiring diggers off them, and you're looking at £10,000 in hire costs for the year doing landscaping, and just thought it wasn't feasible going forward. And a couple of digger men spoke to them. They recommended a certain digger, a Sani is the digger I bought, 2-ton Sani, priced it up, bought it, and haven't looked back with it. It's bringing in another income, bringing another field to work in, moving heavier and heavier into landscaping, paving, block paving, putting big lawn installations. I just don't know how I did my work without it beforehand. I maybe put a stone of weight on the last year because you jump in the digger to move something before you move it with the shovel.
And whenever you were growing your business even before the VAT, what challenges did you face? Like, you were working part-time on the side, you were obviously flat out, keeping everybody happy, trying to juggle
everything. Luckily Aaron was very, very good manager, and he worked with me. I worked with him, whether I went in earlier in the morning and finished earlier, or I went in the evening time and did work for him.
You were doing a lot of work. Then how was COVID for your business? Was it good or bad?
COVID was good. I was very lucky at the start of COVID. We put a 10-acre lawn in at the start of COVID. 7 acres of a field and 3 acres of a lawn, which is still maintained to this day. But we were at that job for 3 months, and it worked well with COVID.
And how many are you on your own, or do you have staff?
I have staff, but them staff are subbed into me. I don't employ anybody full time. Yep. I have subcontractors, if you want to put it that way.
So your subcontractors are only a couple of days a week then, I take it?
Yeah, but that works well because you can get a day, you can get the week when you have to do your maintenance to the housing developments. You can bring them subcontractors in to help you with it, and then the other days there you might be sitting in the digger, preparing an area or preparing a place that's going to be block paved or paved, and maybe that person would be standing there looking at you for half the time. So those days I can go in and do that, and them guys who have their own work will go and do their own work, and then come back when the heavy-handed stuff needs to be done.
You were initially doing some scarfan, hedge cutting, grass cutting, and then a builder came and knocked on the door, and then you managed to get your foot in the door a couple of developments.
Yeah.
How did you grow from there? Tell me how you grew from there.
All our management companies came to me, offered me all our housing developments, the tender for all our housing developments.
So you were still working part-time at this stage?
Still working part-time at this time, but then the more and more housing developments came on board, I had to then take the foot away from greenkeeping.
How much money did you invest into your business to get the scale so as you could do the ground care work for the housing developments?
Housing developments, when it started off really with them was, you were running 21-inch lawnmowers, and I started into that. I started to collect. I was always collecting the grass. But now that when you get into bigger developments and all, you were looking at how am I getting rid of this grass, and with the way things have gone with councils and trying to get into the skips and having to book and getting rid of green waste was harder and harder. So I looked at it in a way that I maybe have to start mulching. So I looked at the machines, and then that Ferris, the ZX36, stand-on zero-turn sort of machine.
If you're mulching, does that mean you're making more visits to site if there's more growth? Or
no, not really. No, not really. Just making sure that you cut at the right times. You maybe have to start your grass cutting at 11 o'clock when the dew's cleared or the grass is dried out, and maybe work to 8 o'clock that night. Keeps things cleaner. You're making sure you're getting a cleaner cut and you're getting a proper cut. You can't go in that morning time and the grass maybe lying over with a dew and you're not getting a clean cut. And then you will have to start going in more to cut it.
How many years have you been out on your own after leaving the golf course?
5 years now, so would 5 years.
So you went through the VAT unplanned?
Unplanned, yeah.
I could see how landscaping would take you into the vat a lot quicker because you have to buy a lot of materials?
Fell into landscaping because the private customers were coming or maybe talking to me when I was making a visit to maybe cut their lawn and going, I'm thinking about changing my patio or putting a patio in here and all. And just me being me and being the businessman, I went, I can do that. Because groundwork's groundwork. You know, whether we were on a golf course and we were building tees or building greens or putting bunkers in, it's all the same fundamentals. Get your levels right, get your ground preparation right. The bit that I then needed to learn was how I lay the flags, or how I lay the block paving, how I keep things square, how I get my finishing heights, making sure you've got drainage runoff. I then knew a guy who did it, and as I says at the time, I was doing the housing development, so I had to be there. So I would have went in, did the ground preparation, had everything sitting ready for this guy, and he'd have came in and done the paving for me.
So you just brought in a subby.
I just brought in a subby and paid a subby, but
Yep.
you know, at the time I was started doing it, we'd had a caravan site on our site, so that kept us very busy. But then there was days that you maybe got your grass done quicker because we had a dry period, and I mean went and laboured for that him, maybe helped bring in the pavers and stuff, and just learnt off him.
Yep.
And then come COVID, he disappeared. You know, a lot of boys just took a back seat come COVID, took their
A lot of people had different reasons.
took their
for that.
self-employed payments, maybe
Yep.
a lot of families and whatnot, or a lot of guys maybe were a bit more scared of it than others. So I just had to teach myself. I had to just get in there and get it done. And
If it took you a bit longer,
took me a bit longer,
Yep.
yep. And that's just, I went from there, you know, and started doing my own over COVID. And then just since then, I've always just done if I've laid my own flags, laid my own pavers, you know.
A lot harder. I'm sure. Then the VAT started creeping up on you a lot
VAT
quicker.
started
Then.
creeping up because obviously if you're going in to do a job at 15 to 20,000 pounds and you're buying 10 grand in materials or 15 grand in materials, and I'm putting it through the business, then that takes me closer and closer to the VAT threshold. You got up to the, what is it, 90,000 now, or 85,000. So that just got me closer and closer to it. Yes, a lot of guys maybe just have the customer pay
Yep.
for the materials, but
Then you're losing. You're also losing out there.
you're losing out, but you have to cover your overheads, you know, and to help cover your overheads, you do need to make the materials, and that's why a building supplier will give you a trade price, and you then sell it at a retail price. There's no point in getting a trade price and giving the customer a trade price.
Would you? So for your pricing, would you work off an hourly rate? Would you work off a per square meter, or would you do like a hybrid of the two, depending on the?
If I was sitting down to do a price, I would kind of, the more jobs you do, the more you get to
The
know
easier it
the
gets.
length of time that you're going to take to do that job. So I would price it per day.
Yep.
2 men on that job, price per day for that job.
In my own business, I look at a job. Either can we do it? Just somebody turning up in 5, 10, 15 minutes. Can we do it? Is it going to be an hour? Then I'll have a set. Then I have it like a sort of set charge
price
for an hour.
yeah.
Then is it going to be a half day job? So I'd have a higher scale and a lower scale, because if I think we're going to do it in 2.5 hours, well, I'm not going to charge my full half day rate, but
Well,
I'm going to have to. You know, we have to drive to it.
There is jobs that I do, and I give them a block price for the job, and then there is jobs that I've done recently that somebody has came to me and going, Peter, we're putting a lawn in to this job. Can you put me the block paved border or something like into it? I would just give an hourly rate for 2 guys. And then if my digger's going in there, then my digger has a day rate for the digger as well. And I just tell them that before I start. And whether it takes me 40 hours or 60 hours to do the job, I haven't told them that, but they're happy enough. You know, they know they're going in at that price. They know what my hourly price is. If they want to help you and move it on, But
A lot of your stuff would be, because there might be a lot of unforeseen things that come up.
always is, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas if we're going into Scar Fire treated garden, we know how much it's going to cost. We know the product cost, and we know roughly how long it's going to take. Whereas if you're going in to dig something up, then obviously you don't know what's
below.
What's below. So
No, 100%. Yeah, like the job I did during the summer, like when we started digging around the back, houses built back in the 50s and 60s. They just put clay up to the house, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think
so you start doing a dig out, and you're expecting maybe crush and run, a certain inch of crush and run to be up to the house. If you go to a new build now, a new build will have a certain amount of crush and run up to the house out from the house. So you know if you're going to start digging, you're going to hit hard ground. But if a house is built in the 50s and 60s, you're building around, you're digging around the house, you're digging out clay, and you're going to have to fill that. And I've had a few snags with that.
Was there much planning into going into becoming VAT registered? Maybe that's what
It happened. I didn't plan to go VAT reg. Didn't know much about it until really talking to my accountant. I always had it in my head that the VAT threshold maybe went from April to April, but where really it goes on a 12-month basis. So it could be January to January, February to February, March to March. And when we sat down and looked at it, kind of realised that over the 12-month periods going forward, I went over the VAT threshold 8 times. And that wasn't it. So I had then to go.
Then you have to backdate it.
Yeah.
Then you have to backdate it. So how did talk us through that? Talk us through that process.
How I backdated it.
Well, just about how you went through it, and did your accountant say, "Look, Pete, what's going on here?"
Well, my accountant sat down and worked it out that from the 1st of June of last year, I had to register myself VAT.
Whenever you went through it, then did you get fined, or does the VAT one give you?
No, I didn't get fined. A lot of people panic when they hear the word VAT.
Yeah.
But it's once you actually look into it and learn it, it's simple. It's very simple. So you just basically going back through my accounts and then looked at the date that I had the VAT reg from, and from the 1st of June I had then to start submitting VAT returns. So I do that every quarter.
And what software do you use to manage that, or do you do it manually?
I use QuickBooks to manage it.
And you find QuickBooks works really well for you to manage it?
It works extremely well. And it's just a matter of if you've purchased something, taking a photo of that receipt, and that receipt then through the app, and then loads into the app. And then when I sit down on the laptop, do my quarterly one, everything's loaded in. I would then just go through my business account and making sure everything adds up. And I've got every receipt in that needs to be in. And then you click a button and it tells you what you have to pay.
And
what you have to pay in VAT, or what you have to submit to the VAT man.
How long do you find that process tends to take you?
I could sit for an hour and a half.
An hour, a couple of hours, just one evening, just knock it out. Yep.
Because of that software.
Yeah.
If you imagine you were doing it by hand, like it would take you flipping all day.
And the software does it for you.
Software works excellent for it.
Yeah.
It's purposely set up for it. Keeps you right.
Whenever you went through the VAT, then did you have to re-quote all your customers, or how did you manage?
Obviously, private customers have been with me for a year. They had to start paying VAT on whether that meant private grass cutting. There was no problem with a lot of customers. Customers were pleased to see you growing as a business.
Did you lose any customers over it, do you think?
No, surprisingly not. I was scared that I was going to maybe lose the housing developments that I had done. Now I have put my prices up with them this year, but I did take the hit on it last year, the 20%. Now I kind of leveled that out this year, but you kind of you looked at it and you'd be losing 20%, but you're also getting the return back on the materials you were paying, or you're paying for your diesel, you're getting your return on it. So everything kind of balanced out.
We've talked to a lot of people and they say that they put their prices up 10%, and then they sort of take a hit in 10% as well.
That's what I've done this year. Yeah.
Just talking about prices in general, how much would you typically raise your prices every year in line with inflation, or would you?
I was very dumb that way, Robbie, to be honest. This is the kind of first year that I've learned to have to put the prices up. every year though. So the last load of years, whenever inflation was only 1 or 2%, I put my prices up 1 or 2%, and some people say, "Why is that like 50p? What's that?" Yeah,
you're like, that's what
I
it is.
I probably maybe always looked at it that I bought a piece of equipment and I'm doing this job quicker now. I don't need to put the price up, but you do. You keep having to put your prices up. Everything else going up.
100%. Not only you have to buy a piece of equipment, then you have to maintain it.
Yeah.
But you have to have enough money there to buy it the second time.
Yeah. And again, that's where we go back to when you're making sure that you're making money on your materials.
So whenever
your overheads.
Whenever you went through the VAT, and you've obviously invested pretty heavily into your business.
Yeah.
That lump sum, did you say to yourself, "Oh right, I can"?
We claim back.
You claimed
it back.
Did you put that back into the business, or did you buy a new kitchen with it?
No, it's went back into the business. I was able to claim back the 3 years, so I was able to go back and claim back the VAT on the trailers that I bought, the digger I bought, machinery that I bought, van, and be able to get a nice bit of money back. But I just took it back, and I've just put it straight back into the business again by ordering an arm machine.
More tools,
just to make life easier, you know.
I suppose that goes back as well to not using debt to grow. So you're using profit.
Yeah. Business cash flow, not having too much financed. is a good thing. Like,
And a general sort of rule of thumb. So whenever I'm running my own business, I pay myself a set wage. I learned it early on. But instead of having all the peaks and troughs, some people will say, Robbie, profit first. But instead of having like peaks and troughs of getting paid and then being skint for a while, I pay myself a set wage.
Yeah.
And there's always money in my account. What way do you pay yourself, or would you just
set amount every month?
And then if you need to take more, you can.
I can't take more if you're going to go on holidays,
Yeah.
or something does come up. But I generally just try and keep myself on a set wage, a living wage, not to be greedy. The end of every tax year, if you've money built up, I reinvest it. Maybe freshen tools up, hedge trimmers or trimmers or blowers, just keeping everything fresh and keeping it running, making sure nothing's going to hold you back. And
I learned from Clanny Boy as well. You know, you're better. Clanny Boy was always pretty switched on, and they always ran with good tools that ran well.
Yeah.
And whenever a tool starts to give you bother, instead of running with machines that you're going out and they're really hard to start.
More downtime.
Always
Falling behind.
Yeah, always invest in and just keep it growing forward.
Always chasing your tail. You're just stressing yourself out by not investing, keeping things fresh, keeping it tidy, looking after it. The worst thing you can do in business is make yourself stressed, you know.
And would you do a lot of the maintenance yourself, or would you get someone to do it for you?
Funny that the digger got his first service there, but they'll not be servicing it again.
No.
Mechanic at £70 an hour. You know? I probably should be learning to do that myself, to do a basic oil change and filter changes. And
I'm not mechanically minded.
Hydraulic.
I'd rather just get someone else to do it, and then I know it's done.
Unfortunate, my
And then
brother,
it's
my
done
brother-in-law works in diesel tractors and what stuff like that. So
very handy
going
then.
forward,
Yeah.
it'll be flipping.
Very handy.
I'll just get him to do it, look after it, you know.
Watch him do it, and then learn how to do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
I've Jason. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to smash the like button. Alternatively, if you're finding this useful at all and you think you have a friend that would find this video useful, if you could send them a text with the link or an email, that would be fantastic. How do you advertise yourself? How does your typical customer find you?
All word of mouth.
I know you don't really have much of a website. You have a bit of a Facebook
Don't
page.
don't have a bit of a Facebook page. Don't do it. Not good with social media. Can't be bothered with it. Sometimes brings heartache. People being smart arses on it. I'm sure you found that.
A lot of things that you see on Facebook aren't necessarily true. We sort of covered up in one of our other podcasts.
But I'm just total word of mouth. As I said, I've been a member of a golf club for 30 years. Like,
and do you find
a lot of people know me?
Yeah, do you find the golf course?
You know, my best advertise is being a member of a golf club.
Yeah.
So it is paying my membership every year, and boys going like, do you know if anybody in Devon? Hi, Peter's good at that. It's just all word of mouth.
That's really good.
You know,
that's really
Let
good.
your work speak for itself.
Yeah. Do a bit of advertising. Like I just took an advertisement there with my local golf club, and I've given them a few quid there. That's about the only advertisement I've paid into or got involved in. Maybe there's boys that know you for a long time now golf club and don't actually know what you do. Might just think you're the local gardener from the town, but you're not.
You having that sign at the first tee or wherever it is, and that's a really good for your customer
people talk.
market.
Yeah, people talk. Like I just have my name on that sign. Now I don't have my business name. It's Peter Roberts Lawns and Landscaping. So people just see my name straight away and just seeing PR, Lawns and Landscaping.
If I was to start a business again, I'd either start my business Robbie's Lawns or Robbie Lynn's Lawns, or I would have the town name in of where I work. So we might call it Belfast Lawn Care. It'd be a lot easier for.
No, definitely. People will pick up on it a lot more. Know your name.
What do you think the future holds for the business?
Keep doing what we're doing, really. Moving more and more into the landscaping. That just seems to be the way it's going. More and more ground maintenance contracts.
Now you have the digger. Do you see yourself doing more digger work and less work on the tools? Is that the way you'd like to go?
41 now, yeah. By the time I get to 50, it would probably be more and more digger work.
More digger work than less. Yeah.
Looking at buying a bigger digger maybe next time as well. I'll always do the grounds maintenance. As I said previously there, that the grounds maintenance contract creates cash flow in my business. So if I have so many grounds maintenance contracts and that's divided by the 12 months of the year, I'm getting that coming in every month. So I know where I'm starting every month. So particularly this time of year when you're a wee bit quieter. And I have been lucky since I started doing harder landscaping that I always have a project in around December, January that covers those 2 months. And then you're getting into February, March. and still doing a wee bit of scar fan, and it's all starting to pick up, wee bit of lawn care. And then you move into lawn installations, maybe pick another contract up during the summer months, haven jobs or whatever, and then you always have the...
Would you find many leads come to you through the housing developments you're looking after? Would people approach you there and say, would you
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Work, I always say that work leads to work. You know, if you're sitting in the house and you're saying, oh, there's no work, a lot of the time it's amazing whenever you're out working,
100%.
whenever people approach you and say, can you do this for me? Work leads to work.
No, definitely. Well, it's all word of mouth. I just think word of mouth is the best advertisement that you can get.
100%.
If you're good at your job, you'll get word of mouth.
Pete, thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you very much for having me.
Our podcast. Good man.
Cheers, Robert.
Thank you.
Thank you.